Welcome to Waking the Kraken. I'm Wes Potts.
And I'm Alex Kahneman.
And today we're going to be talking about things and stuff in the media, as we do every week.
And we're not going to play a video game this time.
Yeah, you guys hated that apparently the last time. Maybe it was because we weren't playing Minecraft. We're really good at Minecraft. We're really shitty at being competitive at
Mortal Kombat. That's for sure.
So this week I went and saw Overlord. It's the JJ Abrams film.
I'm very excited to see this one.
Yes.
So I'm even more excited to hear about it today.
It was all that I could have wanted in a weird twist to a World War II film.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I have to say is if you've watched any of these episodes and you've heard me talk about who I love in the media, one of them is notoriously Kurt Russell.
Yes.
Now, Kurt Russell is not in this film, so there's a tagline right there that says, like, spoiler alert, not Kurt Russell.
Not Kurt Russell.
But his son is. Wyatt Russell is in this. And you may remember Wyatt. He was in Black Mirror. He was in the video game episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
He's the guy that lost his fucking marbles. He is in this as a captain, and he looks like his actions and like even his smirk reminded me so much of Kurt Russell. It was almost distracting. I know that I've said plenty of times before that I would never ever want a new Escape from New York movie,
Right.
or Escape from whatever movie. But if Wyatt Russell is Snake Plissken, I might be able to give it credence.
Yeah. So like, tell me. So like, from what I understand, it's a World War II movie, and they're fighting zombie Nazi soldiers, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are the zombie Nazi soldiers like some part of like a failed Nazi science experiment? Because that's kind of what they're known for, is doing all sorts of crazy weird stuff.
Yeah. So it takes place before D-Day.
Okay.
It takes place with the airborne going in to try to eliminate different targets so that it makes the D-Day landing easier.
Right.
And this one division is on a plane, and they're flying into France, and all of a sudden they get shot down because JJ Abrams hates airplanes.
Yes.
If we've ever seen Lost, we know how much he hates airplanes. But
he really hates airplanes.
He really hates them. But they land in this little village. A small group of them survive. They all collect together, and then they wind up in this little French village. They're being helped by this one French lady. And the population of the town is being taken by the Nazis and experimented on.
Okay.
And they have this one kind of thing, this serum that this Nazi doctor's been working on to reanimate people.
Okay.
And make them these super soldiers and stuff. I think the tagline that they use in the movie is 1,000-year Reich needs 1,000-year soldiers.
That's actually kind of clever. That's funny.
But yeah, so like it's a beautiful action film. Like if you're looking for something that's not really Christmassy this season, or if you've already seen Bohemian Rhapsody or anything like that, definitely go check out Overlord.
So like, I think what's the most interesting to me about this film is like we're kind of coming to this like point in time now where I feel like war films, like especially like World War I and World War II films, have kind of like run the gambit, and a lot of people have already kind of had enough of them, and like they've already been done so well in so many different ways. Like especially when you talk about like Saving Private Ryan, which everybody knows is a great war film, and then also like Dunkirk, which recently came out, which I thought was kind of like a needed perspective on the war as well.
Yeah, that one was really interesting. I think we talked about that on one of the episodes too, and stuff about how like the difference of opinion between American and British war films are.
Exactly, yeah. And then we have, shows like Band of Brothers, and then, of course, Clint Eastwood made the Letters from Iwo Jima, and then I can't remember the name of
Flag of Our Fathers.
Flags of Our Fathers, yeah. And what I've noticed, though, is like, was it, I can't remember the year it came out, but we had Inglourious Bastards come out, which was kind of like the first, like, fantasy war film that I had ever really seen, where it's like, we're just making something up. Like we're not basing it off of a story. We're just going to make up our own thing.
Right.
And so like, I thought that was kind of fun when I saw it the first time, because I was just like, oh yeah, we can actually just like go into the theaters and see what would have happened if we just like killed Hitler the way we wanted. And so that was fun. But also like Battlefield 5 comes out this week, and that's another game that's kind of clearly taking on the like fantasy perspective into like, okay, if World War II could be different from how it actually was, what would be different? And so like they introduced like people running around with like prosthetic limbs, and I'm sure they're going to have all sorts of interesting weapons and all sorts of just like things that didn't actually exist at the time or necessarily weren't part of the actual history, and they're going to be introducing it into the story to like make like a more entertainment-based experience of the war rather than just like a historical kind of documentation.
I feel like Overlord was made because someone pitched the idea to JJ Abrams going, hey, you remember when we used to play that game all the time, Nazi Zombies, on that one game system?
Oh, yeah.
They're like, what if we made a backstory to it? And there was this whole kind of thing. It reminded me a lot of... there were two kinds of things that it reminded me of. So when I was watching it, obviously the World War II aspect and the Nazi zombies reminded me of Dead Snow, if you've ever seen that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Dead Snow was the one that it reminded me of. But the way that it was shot reminded me a lot of The Thing.
Okay.
And maybe there was that Kurt Russell, like his son vibe kind of thing and stuff like that. But even like the cinematics or the makeup on it and stuff just reminded me of this, like, it wasn't just, you know, dead guys coming back. Like, it was grotesque dead guys. Like, they changed their bodies and everything like that whenever they came back. Like, they swelled with adrenaline. They, like, got morbidly gross and everything like that. It was very, very Thing-oriented, and it was super cool on that aspect.
Man, I'm a huge Jonathan Carpenter fan.
Yeah.
And so that kind of makes me a little bit more excited to go see that movie.
Which fits in with JJ Abrams' vibe. I mean, JJ Abrams basically makes movies of a kid that watched all these movies in the 80s and then tries to recreate different directors from the 80s.
That's true.
He did it with, what was it? Super 8. Super 8 was Spielberg. This one seems a lot more like a kind of a blend between him and Carpenter. Mm-hmm. And like, it's... I didn't have a whole lot of expectations for this. I know, like, I knew the premise of the movie, and I was like, that sounds like it'll be a fun film. But me and Chloe came out of it and were like, that film was super fun to watch. From the start of the movie to the very end of the movie. It was just fun, almost all the way through.
Dude, and you know what? Like, not every movie has to be like this super compelling, mind-blowing, amazingly written story. Like, I really enjoy spectacle films.
Well, especially at this time of year where it's like everyone's shooting for the Oscars.
Exactly. I'm really interested to see like the movie coming out, Mortal Engines or whatever.
Yeah, Immortal Engines.
Immortal Engines, yeah. Like,
that's a Del Toro, isn't it, Guillermo?
Yeah, I think so.
It's Guillermo del Toro that's doing that one.
Or is it Peter Jackson? I thought it was.
It might be. I'm not sure. It might be. Yeah, I think you're right now. I think it's Peter Jackson.
But like, I don't really care about what the story's gonna be. It's giant walking cities that eat each other.
Right.
It's gonna be fun, and it's kind of like the movie Pacific Rim. You know, like that movie wasn't exactly like the greatest written.
That was Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, that was Guillermo del Toro. But like, that movie's just really fun to watch, and it like reminds me of being a kid watching all of the Godzilla movies and all the different kaiju movies when I was a child, on like, you know, like the Fox movie channel.
Yeah, just like all those like when you're a kid and you're just like, man, I just want to watch all these action films because they're amazing.
Exactly.
And that was really the thing, is like, it was gritty enough to where like it was awesome in the fact that I'm like, this is an action film. It's gritty. It's like, you know, there's people blowing up. Like, you see a bunch of different things. But it was also, it had a really interesting story with it. Yeah. And it did tackle some actual good tropes too. I mean, it tackled, obviously, it tackled racism because it was a very multi-ethnic cast for the most part, like at the beginning. Yeah. Then you get down to one guy and 3 white dudes. But, you know, there's that too. Like, well, one of them's Jewish. One of the characters that like one of the main characters is Jewish. One of them is obviously African American. The other one's Italian. And then there's Kurt Russell, who is the blonde, like, dreamy guy that every person always sees in all those World War II films.
You mean not Kurt Russell?
No, yeah, the not Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell.
Yes.
The not Kurt Russell.
Yeah. So, also what we had found out is that they're going to be making supposedly a biopic on XXX Tentacion.
There's rumors that they're making a biopic on, what is it again? XXX
Tentacion.
Tentacion. I always mess that up whenever I'm talking. But yeah, they're talking about making a biopic. And my question for you, because you've listened to the album, I haven't. But the thing is, like, Kanye West has stated that he was very inspired by the kid. Like, P. Diddy also said that he was amazing and stuff. But my thing is, he just died last year, right?
Right.
Is it, in my opinion, is it too soon to know how much of an influence he has? I mean, like, we're putting him on, like, by giving him a biopic, we're giving him the same biopic status as Tupac, as NWA, as Notorious B.I.G. These are juggernauts in, like, hip-hop history. Like, these are people that we know 20, 30 years later really, really turned up the volume on this genre and actually like made it a thing. And so am I being a little bit crass, or like am I being a little bit I guess like old fashioned on the idea of like going like, should we wait longer than a year before we start talking about maybe making a biopic on someone because of their status?
Yeah. So like kind of what I think made that album so inspiring for people, or at least the album that he put out I think it was last year.
Yeah.
Was he actually starts it off with like an intro rant where he's like telling you, he was like, this album is not meant to be one thing. It's actually meant to help open people's minds to more different types of music, and he's trying to show off like what music can be in a single album.
Right.
So yeah, so he has like a couple tracks that sound like, something you'd want to hear in a club.
Sure.
He's got some other ones that sound like, like modern day conscious rap. And kind of like how Kanye West, like I really wouldn't call him a rapper. I would just call him a vocalist.
Sure.
Because he, like, his music basically focuses on the human voice as the main instrument of every track. And so, like, he makes these cool beats and tries to blend all these things together to make, his own unique sound, but it all is still centered around what he's doing with his voice. And I'm pretty sure all of his songs start off with just him saying, this is a cool lyric, this would be a cool way to do it, that's what my album's going to sound like. And XXX, his whole thing is he's trying to say, okay, yes, the lyrics are important, and I guarantee you he worked a long time on them because he has some really compelling lyrical writing.
Right.
But he's not like moving hip-hop forward as a genre. He's trying to move listeners forward as music listeners.
Okay.
And I think that's why people were so inspired by him, is because he was putting all of these different types of music together on one album, one after another, and they had this like sort of congruent nature that like you normally don't get with that, that type of varied sound. And I think a lot of people really responded well to that, especially people like you said, Kanye West and
right.
who was the other one?
P. Diddy.
And P. Diddy, yeah, because these are guys who have been in the hip hop game doing the same they're basically doing the same grind for years.
Right.
They're trying to push their thing forward and trying to grow their name, and they've kind of got their ruts that they sit in that like they're really trying to really dig out and redefine how they run.
So it sounds like I guess the way that you could describe at least from the way that you describe the album to me, and I can translate that because I obviously now I need to go listen to this album. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like the idea was less about pushing hip hop forward as much as like doing an art piece of. Do you remember like back in the day when people used to make mixtapes on CDs and stuff?
Dude.
Like making a mixtape, but done by one person.
Exactly.
Like the idea of like here's a whole personality of different kind of things by one person.
Yeah, and it really shows off Tentacion's creative ability and the way his brain works, and it shows how music is not just one thing, and it doesn't have to be just one type of thing, and so yeah, like you got it just right, and I think that's what makes the album really worth listening to, and also it kind of makes me interested in what the biopic would really be about, because a lot of times biopics are like, okay, yeah, about their music, let's talk about their drug
behind,
yeah, and it's usually like, oh yeah, they have a drug problem, like Ray, they had a drug problem. Freaking Walk the Line, he had a drug problem. The Jimi Hendrix movie, he had a drug problem.
Right.
Like all of them kind of focus really heavily on that. And like I'm not saying that this might not go there, but like I think there's so much to talk about, even with just like that one album of music and like what had to happen to him to make that art come out.
Yeah.
That I think they could potentially make a really compelling movie that will be just as inspiring as the music itself is.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, like he did have some controversies behind him and stuff like that at the time of his death.
Right.
I think there was a fight with Migos or something that was like some kind of raging on Instagram or Snapchat or something.
Yes.
Yeah, and that would be interesting to see though too, because that's not a vein we've really seen yet. Like, I mean, obviously, social media has just become part of like making music, like SoundCloud, all that other stuff. So I guess that would be a really interesting way to take that too. I was just curious on that because, like, I mean, I felt like. Yeah, when I read about it, I was like, here's all these people that have gotten biopics in hip-hop.
Right.
They're all people that have, like, been geniuses or really, like, they're still icons today.
Yeah.
And so I was curious about, like, if the album was everything that it should have actually been.
Well, like, if you listen to it all the way through, like, from beginning to end in one sitting, kind of as it is intended, it really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But if you're just listening to like single tracks, you're just kind of like, you might just be really inclined to be like, I don't care for this.
Sure.
But the way he kind of works you through all the different genres that he's willing to produce and put out, or was willing rather, since he passed away last year, really made for what I would consider like a really awesome musical art piece that is also entertaining to listen to and something I would want to jam in the car.
Yeah, very cool.
Because I feel like a lot of art music is like, it's fun to listen to live.
Sure, yeah.
But you don't
with the actual show going on.
Yeah, but whenever you're just driving in your car, you're not gonna like bump John Cage. Nobody like blasts opera and goes down the street, you know.
There is that weirdo. There's got to be one out there.
There's gotta
Tell
be
us
at
your
least
stories of the weirdos that listen to opera in your city.
Yeah. Oh, and also I think we should mention the Detective Pikachu trailer.
Yes.
That movie looks hilarious.
Yeah, I was very excited. I know I saw a lot of backlash online, but I only think it was from like super like Pokemon fans.
Well, yeah, okay. So here's one: is people say Jigglypuff doesn't have fur because Jigglypuff is a puffball, and a puffball is a type of mushroom. So the alternative to Jigglypuff having a bunch of fur and explaining the swirl on its head as being hair is it would just be a fleshy mass ball.
Terrifying monster.
Yeah, with like this weird fleshy swirl on its head. And it's like they're just trying to make it cute. Like they know live action Pokemon is kind of a bad idea. And so they're trying to do it in a way that's fun to watch. And like having Ryan Reynolds be the voice of Pikachu means like they're taking it very lightheartedly, and they're trying to make it an entertaining film that has Pokemon in it.
If you like the idea of Ryan Reynolds being Pikachu, I'm going to tell all of you at home to look up and listen to the YouTube edit of that where it's just Danny DeVito's voice.
That's hilarious.
And say which one's better. Like, Danny DeVito or Ryan Reynolds. It's the debate of the century now. Like,
well, I think that's all I have.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was really excited about that film. I'm interested to report it back whenever one of us sees it.
Yeah, definitely. Which is going to be not until next year.
Yeah, it's not going to be till next year, but I think it's a hilarious concept. I love how it's taken the piss out of Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because I do think that like if you take anything too seriously, then you're going to get upset at any little thing. And I think that is the most ridiculous concept you could have for Pokemon that I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah. What was the kid's name? You know, we used to watch that show about
Justice. Justice. It's Will Smith's son, Justice Smith.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he. I remember falling in love with him whenever we were. I can't even remember. The Get Down.
Yeah, by Baz Luhrmann.
I thought he did such an amazing job in the Get Down.
I was really excited to see him do that too, instead of like Jaden. Like, nothing against Jaden and stuff like that, but I think the thing is, like, I'm really excited to see more of Justice.
I agree. Well, I think. Like, I don't mean this in a bad way. I just think that he brings a more real approach to acting. And I feel like Jaden, whenever he puts out his art, like, almost all of it, like, you can't help but feel like, okay, he's led a life that I've not led. And so it's really hard for me to relate to him a lot.
Sure.
And so unless it's the moments where he's talking about, like, you know, like, really human things.
Right.
Like, otherwise, it's kind of like I just can't connect with him quite, even in some of his acting. And so, like, Justice, I feel like, is, like, so good at just feeling like a real dude.
Right.
And so like, I'm really excited to see how he freaking fights off Pikachu with a stapler.
Yeah, that looks hilarious to me, too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us this week, everybody.
Yeah, have a good one. Bye.
Okay, goodbye.